Bonjour à tous, bienvenue. We are live and ready for our special French teacher class. I am so excited for this one. As you know, I am a French teacher at heart, and I actually was in a position too where I had to beg to teach French for a little bit because y'all know that if you are in the same boat as me where you do two, where if you have French and Spanish, they'll always ask you to teach Spanish. So I was like, no, okay, make sure that I teach French. So I'm excited to just be hanging out with y'all French teachers today as we go through an easy, quick, strategic, and organized way to map out your curriculum. If you are in the position like I have been at least 3 times where you need to quickly get your ideas on paper for what your curriculum is going to look like. Maybe you're starting from scratch, or maybe you're working in conjunction with a textbook. Maybe you're working in conjunction with department or other materials, maybe like state curriculum, and you need to figure out how you're going to make that work. This class is for you because we're going to take the very little time that you have, maybe either this spring or this summer, if you're watching this, and make sure that you are maximizing that time with an easy to use tool so that you have something called a curriculum map. A curriculum map is something that's going to make sure that all of your ideas, everything that you want your curriculum to be, actually comes to fruition. So we're going to start with making sure that you have the tools that you need for class. First thing I want you to do is make sure that as you're watching this, say, hey, tell me where you are watching from and join me in the comments. Hello. I'm going to check and make sure that everything is working correctly on here. Tell me in the comments below where you are watching from and what you teach. I'm so excited to be hanging out with you. So what we're going to be doing today, though, is going to need, I have a download for you so that you can follow along with us. And it's going to be at lalibrelanguagelearning.com/map. lalibrelanguagelearning.com/map. You'll get a download to what we're going to be using today in order to organize your curriculum. So make sure that you put in the comments what level of French you teach. I know you teach French 1, but do you also teach a bunch of other ones? Because I bet you that you do. And then tell me, what are you working on with your curriculum right now? Like, what is your goal? If you're watching this class, are you trying to maybe revamp it a little bit? Are you in the position where your curriculum was just like all over the place this year and you're trying to streamline it a little bit? Maybe you are, like pretty much all of us in the US. I can't speak for other places, but trying to transition towards more of a proficiency centered curriculum. Then tell me, I would love to help you with that. All right, so I'm going to show you exactly where we're going to be at today. Once you go to, again, you know what? I can probably type this in here. Hi, Jonesboro, Tennessee. Early, so nice of you joining us. You got French 1 and 2. All right, perfect. Well, and this one is for you. All right, so I'm going to type in here the website that you are going to so that y'all can just click on it then. LibreLanguageLearning.com/map. All right, so head to that and you should be able to download it. Make sure, tell me if the link works and everything is good because I just created it. So I want to make sure that it works for you. I tested it, but you know how those things go. Well, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show my screen so that we are ready. And we're going to be in Adobe. So this is what you're going to get when you get all the stuff. You're going to end up in, let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. You're going to get something called this curriculum map for Duolang teachers. Now, today's class is going to be a little bit of a different vibe because I know that you've got things to do when it comes to a curriculum. And if this is your first class, I'm so happy that you're here. If this is not your first class, then you've probably been following along with this path that we've been doing of a curriculum series. This is class, it's either 6 or 7, I don't remember, but we've been rolling with this whole idea of how to revamp your curriculum in different pieces. So if this is your first time joining me, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited that you're here. And know that I've been in your shoes when it comes to working with a a curriculum that's a little bit all over the place and needing to get it done quickly, I feel you on that. So that's why I created this tool for you. This class builds on some of the knowledge that we have worked on beforehand. So if I mention something during this class, it's intended to be quick, short, casual, so that you can just go. You can print this out or type on it because this is all completely editable. You know me, I love my tools. I love my tech tools, and I love messing with Adobe. It's got so many cool tools in it. So when you download this, you're going to be able to see in here that you can type into all of this here, and it's completely editable. And when you print it out, all your notes will be there. So you can follow along with me as we create this map together. This map is based off of and is going to have some terms from previous classes like enduring understandings, intercultural communication, performance indicators. If any of those are like, I could use a refresher on those ACFTL tools, head to my Facebook page, facebook.com/La Libre Language Learning. You're already here. Or you can go to my YouTube page, which just search La Libre Language Learning on YouTube, and you'll find a bunch of classes on each of these subjects so that you can dive in further. But in order to make this class short, sweet, and to the point, we're going to jump on in. Okay, so let me zoom out so that you can see the whole shebang of what we are working with here. When you go to this webpage and get this free download, you're going to see that there are 3 stages of this map. I bet you didn't know, but we're literally working with a map today with French 1. So for our French 1, what we're working with is something that I am using right now in order to create my own French 1 curriculum and make sure that everything is lining up the way that I would like it to. And I've used something like this in the past when I've done curriculum consultations and curriculum work, things like that. And I'm also using this right now to work on a Spanish curriculum for somebody. So this is a very useful tool and is intended to help give you a guide. The number one thing that usually happens when teachers start working on their curriculums is they feel like they should be an expert in this because this is what they teach. This is the material that they're steeped in every day. But that is not the case. Organizing and curating curriculum and materials is a very different skill from teaching. So do not beat yourself up if this is something that does not come naturally to you. Curriculum is a beast. It's a total beast. I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. World language teachers are accidental experts in curriculum development because we have to do it all the time, right? We have to do it all the time. So since you've got, I don't know, a lot on your plate this year, I thought this would make it a little bit easier for you. This map is based off of 3 resources. So know that like I kind of made this, but this is really adapted from a bunch of different sources. So I'll show you down here. This is adapted from ACTFL. A lot of the terms that are in here are from ACTFL. Now for my European friends and anybody else who uses this system, ACTFL is the American one, but we have a similar one for the oh my gosh, I already forget what it's called, but we mentioned it in another class. It's the European equivalent of who governs language standards. ACTFL and that organization, I think it's, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher it. It's a UCFR or something along those lines. Let me go ahead and make sure that I've got this on no molestar. That welcome to French class, my computer's in Spanish, that those organizations work very closely together to have similar things. And this is the organization, since I'm butchering the name, that works with the A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 proficiency levels that, the rest of the world uses. But, America, we have our own organization. So this is adapted from ACTFL. It's also adapted from Wiggins and McTigue, who are the writers behind Backward Design. And this has a lot to do with the ideas behind starting from, of course, the end in order to get the end result that you're looking for. And the last influence on this whole structure was Shrum and Gleason, who write a lot of work towards world language teachers. So now that you know where this is coming from, let's take a look at this. Your curriculum map to help organize your ideas is, in its essence, it's just a backward design map. What I hope for you is that your experience will be a little bit different than mine, is that most world language teachers, besides thinking that they need to be an expert on this, also get into that mode where we want to skip right down to this part, units, themes, and topics. That's usually where we start. I know that's where I definitely started in a couple of curriculum meetings. And then we want to get down to this part, which is actually one of the last in core structures and skills and content words. So if we're in the position where we have that freedom of starting to work on our curriculum, we usually start right away with, okay, like I can't wait to let's start with G, let's start with key, let's start with some question phrases. Let's make sure that they've mastered first person, present tense, and all that junk. But those are incredibly important. But that's actually not where you should start if you want this process to go quickly, because you know what's going to happen if you start here in core structures and skills, or maybe even if you're starting in content words in things like, I know that I want to do a restaurant unit. I would love to do clothing because my students talk about it a lot. And speaking of what my students talk about a lot, let's do school. Let's also do weekend activities, physical, personal, descriptions, all that jazz. This is usually where people start because many of us teach the way that we were taught, and we understand that content organization has to do with the content. But as somebody who's done this a lot, this process goes a lot faster and you will get much better results if you start with this. Even though it's going to take you a little bit more time at the beginning, this will take you a lot less time once you start getting here to core structures and skills. This is broken down into 3 stages. Of first, stage 1, when you are mapping out something as daunting as a curriculum, maybe a full semester, maybe a full year. It's daunting either way. Stage 1 is your desired results. If you have not seen this class yet, make sure that you check out the class that I taught about the 9 steps to a proficiency-centered curriculum, where I'm going to tell you to make sure that you have a goal for your class, or what is your mission statement for your class? Okay, so for me, my mission statement for my class and what I always wanted to happen in my classroom. Oh, bonsoir, Ingrid. Thanks for joining us again. Oh, it's late where you are. It's late where you are. I'm glad that you're here, though. So our desired results would be something like our goals for the curriculum, or my mission statement was always empathetic. You know what? Let's go ahead and zoom in since we're just looking at this first part here. This blue is all the stuff that is editable to you. Were y'all able to download I'm looking at y'all like I can see. Were y'all able to download this? Make sure that you'll put in your email address, and then this should just come right up that you're able to download this from Dropbox. So let me know if that's working. If it's not working, we'll get you set up. Empathetic global citizens prepared for the workforce and digital universe. You see my sweet typing skills here. And environment. Okay. That was definitely my first desired result. Second desired result is that, and I'm just doing enter here in order to get to another line. Because since this is an editable PDF here, it's going to be a little limited in what you can do with the formatting. But this way you can just print this out a million times if you need to. You can also just print this out and do this on scratch paper if you want, but I like to type this out. The second thing that I really want my students to be for French 1 is I'm crossing my fingers and really hoping that they can get to novice high. I think that that's a possibility, that most will be novice mid, probably, especially this year. What am I doing? I'm thinking of my Spanish keyboard. Most novice mid, but many will reach into novice high. Perfect for you to start with. Now that you have your desired results, you can look at everything that you do beyond this point and make sure that everything is working with this. Because something common that usually happens is that, you know, we as language teachers, we get so excited about everything that we want to teach because we teach French 1, okay? It's the best subject on the block. We get to teach the coolest things. We get to do Francophone culture. We get to travel literally the entire globe. And we get to talk about friggin' the coolest people ever. Like, I'm sorry, Spanish teachers, they're not watching this, so they're not going to know. But Francophone leaders are the coolest. They're the coolest. They've done amazing things. So I get really excited about all the things that I want to talk about. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, we're going to do la négritude. And I know that this has an accent, but I'm just going to skip it for now. We're going to do la négritude. Like, we're going to do like post-colonial thought. We're going to do diaspora. We're going to do the Caraïbes. Oh my gosh, we're going to do so many things. Like we're going to do rugby, like just because I love rugby because I used to play it. It's you just get really excited about all the units, themes, and topics. And then I go, okay, hold up, stop. Post-colonial thought processes. Not really a thing for novice mid and novice high, like full stop. That's not a thing. So I don't know about you, but if you think like me, I get really excited about teaching French stuff. And this, I will say, I have experienced as a student many times in my career, because if you're a teacher, you get into teaching because you freaking love your subject. So you get all excited about all of the advanced things that you want to talk about, and you forget that you're working with beginners. So I remember being in French 1, being in French 2, being in French 3, and the teacher talking about things like in very rapid French. Of course, this was not in a CI proficiency centered classroom. My teachers were awesome, but you know, that's still something that's picking up speed right now. And talking about thought processes, social movements, culture, all these things. And I just wasn't ready for it. I mean, we had to do most of it in English because we're still in French 1 or French 2. And then at that point, it's like, why are you spending so much time doing this when we can't talk about it in the target language? So that's when you go full stop and say, I can talk about rugby in the target language. I can talk about Le Caraïbe in the target language. Diaspora, yeah, you can definitely talk about that in the target language. Post-colonial thought, probably not. La négritude, absolutely. That's an easy movement that you could talk about in the target language in French 1. Okay, so maybe we're going to cut that one. Unit themes and topics, we can go further into that. But having this unit themes and topics being the second thing that you do, it's good to have that be the second rather than starting with units, because it's when you have an idea of what level your students are at and a concrete idea, not just a vague idea of this is where my students have been in the past, that's actually not a good place to start. Because if you have been teaching for, well, it doesn't really matter what your experience level is, honestly. If you're switching to a more proficiency styled teaching, then your students are going to be doing different things in class. They're going to be learning at a different pace, giving you different results, and focusing in on different things that you're not used to. Can anybody relate to that? If you've ever switched to proficiency and of course, I have been very open about this, is that I never fully switched to proficiency. I was like a 60%, 70% proficiency style teacher, because that was what was practical for me at the time of my season of teaching in life. So what I started to see was that in times that I was doing proficiency centered lessons, students were getting all of this great language, but then other things that they would normally grasp onto pretty easily, that were of course practice presentational methods, that would kind of get, you know, left in the dust a little bit, which is fine because it wasn't as important. But if you're doing a lot of lectures and presentation style, this higher level stuff doesn't really, in terms of cultural materials that you have to rely a lot of the first language in order to do, that's not going to happen. And that's a good thing. You're doing something different. It's good. it's good. So make sure that you keep your eyes on the prize with my desired result is that they will be novice high speakers. And that means that some things are going to have to get cut because we're focusing in on language. Do not misconstrue that with the idea that culture is not going to get touched. That's quite the opposite. It just means that you have a different approach to it. It means that you have a different approach. Okay, so some other desired results, you fill those in for what you want those to be. Stage 1 is all of this, getting your ideas together for what you want the end of the year to look like for your students. So I've got my mission statement here. I've got my level of where I would like them to be. And this stage 1, we'll just call this a space where you can write some notes as you are working on your curriculum. The next part is going to be enduring understandings. And this is what I mean by culture is not going to be by the wayside. We're not putting culture in the corner here. I do not believe in that by any means. In a target language centered classroom, though, your enduring understandings help to shape the culture that happens in your classroom that is still viable and reachable at your students' level, so that you don't ever have to choose. Like, we have this idea that we have to choose between target language and culture. I know I've felt that many times, but it's more along the lines of taking a different approach to it. So what is an enduring understanding? Again, we've got classes on this. Don't worry, I've got you. But the basic gist of an enduring understanding is that what will your students really understand about themselves and the world at the end of your unit, theme, topic, skill, but most importantly, your class, French 1. At the end of French 1, for me, and we go deeper into this, into other classes that you can watch, but one of the enduring understandings for my French 1s is that French class is not about France. It's like my number 1 enduring understanding. Another one, greetings reflect social structures in societies, cultures. So compare this with what usually happens where you have your very first unit of French 1, where they're learning les salutations, and they're thinking about like la bise and les différences sociales entre les salutations. And they're figuring out that people say hi differently in different cultures. You can bump that up a little bit with the whole difference between like tutoyer and vous voyez, like tu and vous. That whole thing doesn't exist in American culture, right? So their enduring understandings, instead of saying something that's explicitly language focused, like they're going to understand the difference between tu and vous and know when to use them, when it's appropriate and when it's not. Their enduring understanding, what they will really understand about the world is that, hey, greetings they really reflect how society is structured around the world. I'm learning this right now because I'm learning Japanese. It's one of my hobbies right now. I love Japanese. I used to speak fluent Japanese when I was a kid because I used to live there when I was 3. And so now I'm relearning it. It's like a dusty folder in the back of my head. And I am learning about just how different it is just to say hi in Japanese, and the different ways that all of those expressions really reflect a lot about that society and culture. That is the reason we learn language, is those enduring understandings, right? Like your students are not just learning to communicate. They're learning that other people think about the world differently, and it's reflected and embedded in that language. Ooh, there's another good enduring understanding. Since we're in a level 1 language course, this is going to be many of your students' first experiences with language, right? So one of their enduring understandings that I always wanted them to have is that language reflects the values of the people who speak it. That's an enduring understanding. It's easier for me to give you an example than it is for me to really tell you what an enduring understanding is. What do y'all think about that? Let me know if an enduring understanding, what would come to you as you're thinking about how you're going to put this into your curriculum. These make it a lot easier to choose materials for your units. So as you're making a map and you're thinking of, okay, I want to make sure that my students understand that language reflects the values of the people who speak it, it makes it a million times easier when you're looking at different lesson plans. If you're scrolling through TPT, I gave y'all a survey. If you're on my email list already, if you're on the La Libre newsletter, which is where it's at, then you know that I gave you a survey yesterday and we had a lot of French teachers answer it. And I asked you, where do you usually get your ideas for all your lesson plans? Many people said that they scroll through TPT and they scroll through blogs and they go on Pinterest and things like that. When you're doing those things, you'll be able to pick out, boom, 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 like that, what's good for your classroom and what is not for your classroom. And what would be good for French 2, but maybe not for French 1, instead of being like me and spending 3 hours of your Sunday looking for things. I know I'm not the only one. Don't lie. I know I'm not the only one. Essential questions. Ooh, essential questions. I love essential questions. Essential questions are another way to organize the ideas of what exactly your students are going to learn. So they're related to enduring understandings though. Now use essential questions if they help you. These helped me a lot. When I first heard about essential questions, when I was working on the South Carolina proficiency curriculum, I was like, this sounds like a fancy word that we're just throwing around. I don't know if I really need this. I mean, I'll do it because you're asking me to. But the more I used it, the more I found it to be really helpful. So try it, see how you feel about it. I like them a lot. I'm a big fan. Okay, so here's what an essential question it would be. If you're teaching something like a school unit, you can do essential questions along the lines of like, this is what your students will be able to answer. What students will be, they'll be able to answer by the end of the class or unit. So it could be something along the lines of, how do I interact with my teacher in a classroom? If you are talking about a school unit, how does geography and the economics of a target culture impact their access to and opinions about school? So instead of things like that are very surface level understandings of a school unit, essential questions, the reason they're going to be really helpful to you is that they help to elevate the material. Let's say you're working with a school unit, looking at something like essential questions gets to the real meat and potatoes, the heart of what you are doing in that unit and why you are teaching it. So if I'm doing a school unit with my French ones and teaching them about school supplies, and we're talking about how to use all of your classroom phrases, and then we're going to compare our school to a school in a target country culture, really, if we're looking at French, because you know there's pockets of things everywhere, then this essential question means that we're going to be able to go a whole different, deeper layer that your students would still be able to answer in the target language. Honestly, they could say something along the lines of, this insert target culture thinks school is good because they have access. This target culture doesn't think school is important because they don't have access to it. Like, those are things that students could talk about in the end of a level 1 course. So remember when we talked about earlier that you got to be careful about what types of things you're talking about in especially in a cultural context. When you get all excited about all the things that you want to talk about in your curriculum for your units or your themes or your topics, when your department gets together and says, okay, we're really excited to integrate all of these new and modern themes and really deepen the level of our curriculum, you can use essential questions to say, that's a very ambitious idea, but maybe it'll make it a little bit more realistic if we are just asking the right questions instead of asking more questions and asking really challenging questions. These essential questions, having maybe 2 or 3 of these per unit, is really helpful to organizing your ideas. And making sure that you're still hitting those essential cultural points that is like the reason that we teach the class, right? Intercultural communication is where you're going to put all of your ICCs to make sure that you are hitting all of those things that you would like your students to be able to do by the end of your course. And I am totally going to cheat and use some help for this. There's a whole class on this though for intercultural communication. I have a little cheat sheet right here in my handy-dandy notebook, but you can find these on the ACFTL website. I'm going to be using some of these. So what I do, I'm not going to do it right now so we can save some time, but what you're going to do here is make sure that you look for novice, like I'm about to do here, and put in, okay, for novice, interpretive, no, down here, intercultural communication for investigate, I'm going to put in my own and other cultures, I can identify products and practices to help me understand perspectives. So you're focusing mostly on identify at the novice level. And then in intercultural communication, I can interact at a survival level. That's the main word for novice, is interact at a survival level for novices. And then when you get to French 2s, French 3s, French 4s, you can start working with and seeing if maybe you can bump up the level a little bit to intermediate. But mostly you're going to be working with novices if you're at the middle school or high school level. Why do we want to do that? Am I actually going to look at? I know that's what you're thinking, is for these standards, like, okay, like, but am I actually going to use those? Here's why. We talked about this earlier, but world language teachers especially, we get very guilty of underestimating what our language goals are, overestimating what our intercultural goals are. So that's why these are here, because we want to make sure that we are bumping it up for performance indicators and that we're actually providing them tasks and opportunities in learning to get where they need to be instead of keeping them at the novice low and novice mid level, because you'd be surprised how much we accidentally keep them there by the activities that we're providing. I know I was surprised when I looked at that. Oh, it's like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I am keeping them at the novice low level because I keep providing them with novice low opportunities to talk. But with intercultural communication, I was doing quite the opposite. Most of my activities were not interacting at a survival level. It was all this high level stuff that they were not ready for. So that is why we keep this here in stage 1 of our curriculum map, making sure that our students are going to be on the right level. Performance indicators. There's a whole class on this, so we were just going to do this really, really quickly. But a performance indicator or a performance benchmark, like proficiency benchmark, like whatever you want to use. These bad boys are on ACFTL, like all over the flipping place. But let's go ahead and look at interpersonal communication, because that's my favorite. Like, that's why I really think we're in language classes. And I have a spiral bound version of this, but this is again on ACFTL. I just don't want to switch between screens right now, but this is on ACFTL. If you type in performance indicators, you can download this whole thing for free. And I have a whole class on this. It's called How to Make Can-Dos a Can-Do. You can look at that whole class and learn more about how these work and why they're so awesome. But let's go ahead and look at this. So for my can-dos, my focus here in this proficiency benchmark is I'm thinking about, how are my students going to be able to exchange information and ideas in a conversation? What level do I want them to perform at? If I want them to get to a novice high, to exchange ideas in a conversation, like even before you look at ACFTL, you can kind of think, is that I want them to be able to ask questions pretty confidently and provide a kind of sort of answer. That's my really professional way of saying where they should be at. And this is what ACFTL says. For a novice high, it's I can request and provide information by asking and answering. Don't mind my typos. Practiced key phrase here, not original, and some original phrases. That's where people really get tripped up. / questions on familiar and everyday topics. This is interpersonal novice. Hi. All right, so this is where I want them to get. I can request and provide info. You know what that means? Ooh, we need to learn question words. Oof, and we need to learn some answering phrases. So I'm going to just go down here and say, okay, I know we need question words. And I know we need simple answer phrases. Performance indicators should direct your core structures and skills. It's not the other way around. What happens a lot of the time is, since these performance indicators have been released, that people have their core structures and skills in mind and they say, sweet, I'm going to make sure that my performance indicators that I pick out match all the things that are already on my core structures list. It's easier if you do it the opposite way. If you start with your performance indicators, ooh, I need space here, then you know that you're only going to teach what's necessary. Because here's another thing that has happened. Has this ever happened to you? Oh, good, Ingrid. I'm so glad I'm not alone. The only one looking for 3 hours for material. Like, I used to have fun with it, but also there were many times where I was like, where are the French things? Where? Why is it all Spanish? Pourquoi? I know y'all feel me, right? Pourquoi? Why is it all Spanish? I used to translate so much stuff. Not anymore. Now I make it. So I'm just having fun with y'all at this point. So for performance indicators, something that this will help prevent for you if you start with performance indicators, because I'm very guilty of this right now, is curriculum stuffing. In my family, I'm known as the burrito stuffer because I'm no longer, happy Cinco de Mayo, I am no longer allowed to make burritos in this house because you know what I do? I get too excited about all the things that are on the stove. I say, pico de gallo, por supuesto. I say, ooh, refried beans. Yeah. Ooh, carne asada. Yeah. And I put all of it, guacamole, sour cream, all the cheese, all the queso, and I wrap it all up. And guess what? It falls apart. I can't make burritos because I always overstuff them. My husband has to always do it because he's like, you have no self-control. I know. And because I have no self-control in the burrito syndrome, if you have burrito overstuffing syndrome in your life, you probably also have it in your curriculum. So this makes sure that my curriculum is nice and trim in that it's got the curves where it's necessary, but not where it's not. Next, we have our stage 2. Now that we have our beautifully curvy curriculum map is all set up with a few things to get us where we need to go. We know we want our students to be really well versed in the Francophone universe. We know that they are going to get some really deep, enduring understandings about how language reflects the values of societies and cultures. And they know that they're going to need to know about how a teacher interacts in a classroom and all those good things. And we've got some ideas about the standards that they're at. We're ready to start doing this. Now, this is the part that is really going to be up to you. I wanted to show you this part because this is going to need some guidance, but this is, you know how to do this. This part's up to you. Assessment and evidence is stage 2. How are you doing assessments? In unit-based curriculums, what you usually have is formative and summative assessments on all the 4 modes, depending on where you're at and what your structure looks like. This is going to be highly individual depending on what structure you choose to use. So map out a couple ideas of what's going to look good for your students. Something to think about too is that if you've got a little bit of freedom, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but if you've got a little bit of freedom, something that I've always wanted to try and that I suggest you do, listen to the Inspire Proficiency podcast with Ashley Uyuwari. She does portfolios at the end of the year, and I think that's really cool. If I had the freedom to do that, I would have absolutely done that. That sounds like, to me, one of the most efficient way and the most honest way to really see where students are at. But for me, working where I did, we worked with pretty solid, I was happy with them, IPAs. That's what we used, integrated performance assessments. Structure and time frame. This is the part where you're going to look at your district calendar. How many days and contact hours? I honestly would even, like, I would print this part out and like make little boxes for each week and see exactly like how you can make this work. Are you going to have 8 weeks in a unit? Are you going to do mini U's with 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks? Like, how is this going to play out for you? Then you get to do the fun stuff. Now that you know like what time frames you're working with, now you get to do the fun stuff. And you might already have all of this down, especially if you're just working with tweaking a curriculum, is now you get to just dump all of your units, themes, and topics into this. Okay, so this also just this does not have to be your beautifully organized curriculum map right off the bat. Like, make it messy, because messy is where the real work is going to happen. When you give yourself permission to make some mess on this, that's where the real work is going to happen. If you keep this to be your perfect curriculum map and then put it on the wall, you're probably not going to look at it that much. But a working document is going to be much more effective. It's kind of why I like having them being editable so that you can type in them. But this is where you're going to put out all your unit themes and topics. So here are some ideas too, if you're thinking of, well, okay, all of those are not really language oriented themes. Those are content oriented themes. So here are the language oriented themes that I'm going to be doing with my curriculum. Special person interview. Personality, like me voici. And then we're going to do mon étoile favorite. I know there's an accent, don't worry about it. Ça ne me dérange pas. We're going to do mon étoile favorite to do personality descriptions and to do physical descriptions, because, you know, we're going to, and that's when we're going to do the whole like hit il and elle and all those high frequency phrases and adjectives. And something else that I would like to do that's really popular with students too is hobbies and weekend activities. Like, this is where you get all that out of your system. Now it gets good. This is the part that's going to take you the most time. Now we're into stage 3, the learning plan. And you got some directions here for you. Now that you have an idea of how you'll structure the skeleton of your curriculum, you got the time frame, you got some rough assessments in place, sketch out what is this going to look like for the course. So now that I've even just been thinking about this, I have an idea of when I'm going to do what. I'm looking at this and saying like, ooh, I definitely need to talk about school at some point in this, because I want those targeted, highly targeted school unit. I know that I want that because I want students to be able to talk about their immediate environment in school and also compare that to a Francophone country. So I know I'm going to need that. A way that you can do this is you can type this out in a line, like you could do unit 1 and type. 2. Or you could print this out and maybe sketch it out. That would be very helpful too. But this is your space to really map this out. And then we get to the last part, core structures and skills. Okay, so we already talked about question words, simple answer phrases. I know that for content words, I'm gonna want school talk. I'm gonna want commands. Without teaching how to make commands, I'm just gonna do simple commands. Question words, simple answer phrases. I'm going to want those high frequency present tense verbs. You know it. I want those story verbs. This is a term that I like really came up with on my own. It doesn't really mean anything. It's like the Mike Pito Sweet 16 plus a few others that I like to use for when I use CI novels. I know that I'm going to want those in there. So I'm going to put those in there. Some other core structures and skills that you might want is, I've heard people describe for curriculum creation, a really good way to do it is also skill-based and not necessarily content-based. So maybe narrating and describing immediate environment. What would a student need in order to be able to do that? So you could think of like je vois. That's a really essential piece of being able to do novice level tasks or survive in a target language environment. So surviving in a TL environment, what would they need to do? They would need basic polite phrases. I don't understand language. They would also need significant listening practice. Surviving in the TL environment also means that they're going to need some very basic cultural understanding and awareness of some differences. Interaction phrases like and attention getters, like excuse me, where is, how can I find, that this is how I think about curriculum. And this is how a lot of textbook creators also think about curriculum too. Then you can get to your content words, thinking about what's going on here with your course structures and skills. This is going to lead you to your content words. And you know how to do content words. You've been doing content words forever. You've probably been, like me, stealing a lot of your curriculum skeleton from the inside of textbooks and looking at just what that content is in order to help you map out your own curriculum. But this is going to work a lot better for you, because when you start with the end in mind, as we all know from backward design, but if you're also starting with language specific skills of essential questions, enduring understandings, and then your desired results as the teacher, plus some standards to help guide you, gives you a really nice, very honed in, very focused curriculum where all of your goals are evenly balanced. And the best part is that using something like this is not going to take you nearly as much time as trying to come up with all the pieces on your own. So I hope that you found all of this. Oui, exactement, tout à fait, Ingrid, tout à fait. So I hope that this is going to make your entire experience with creating or revamping curriculum a lot easier for you, because I know that as a French teacher, the struggle is so real when it comes to finding good materials for French class, trying to make things work between French 1 and French 2 and French 3. And Lord knows when you're ever going to get time to work on your curriculum, if that's a thing. Like I used to squeeze it in during PD days because I was a fast grader. So this tool, I'm hoping, will help shave a bunch of hours off of your curriculum experience. Now, if this is just like a brief taste of what curriculum looks like, if you're ready for the real deal, I have a full glorious curriculum workshop for you that is going to get you through every single piece and step so that you can go top to bottom a gorgeous curriculum. And this map will help you get there. This kind of shows you the steps, but the curriculum workshop will walk you through, with me holding your hand, exactly how you can get that done. And don't forget about this. If you're an all access pass holder or launchpad from the Practical and Comprehensible conference, then you already have access to that. So make sure that you're walking through it and using the resources that you have available to you. All right, teacher friends, I hope that you have an amazing Teacher Appreciation Week. Y'all are really, really special, and you deserve to be showered with lots of love. And my family's coming home here. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for joining me, and I will see y'all soon. Ciao, merci, au revoir.